Hello, and a very warm welcome to札幌学院University Community College Global Issues in English. And today's topic is population. Before we begin, I would recommend that you visit this site where you can find some vocabulary support and some language exercises which will help you with this topic. Right, to begin with, I have a question for you. How old are you? Now in English, this is not a very polite question, so let's change it. How old am I? And the answer to this question is, I'm not going to tell you. It's my secret. But I will give you a hint. When I was born, there were 2,591,899,454 people in the world. And to put that in easy language, 2.6 billion people. And now we can see there are 7,800,000,000 people in the world, or to put it easily, 7.8 billion. So a huge jump just in my lifetime from that 2.6 billion to 7.8 billion. And if we look at a graph over a longer period of time, we can see rather shocking information. From 10,000 years ago, the population really didn't change at all for thousands of years. Then 500 years ago, it began to grow very, very slowly. And then 200 years ago, it began to grow very, very quickly. And in the 20th century especially, it jumped from 1.6 billion people to 7.7 billion people in the year 2019. So a really shocking graph showing the rise in population. Why did this happen? Well, perhaps we can start to understand this by looking at this very interesting photograph from Japan in the 1890s, showing many young Japanese children. Although they don't look very rich, we can understand that at about this time they began to get better medical treatment, they began to have better infrastructure, better education, and better food, and we can imagine that most of these children would grow up healthy and would get married and would have families of their own, and probably with a lot of children of their own. And here's a question. In 1964, so in the middle of the 20th century, what do you think the birth rates were? Now, the birth rates are the number of children in each family. What do you think were the birth rates in Botswana, in India, and Bangladesh? Can you imagine? 1964. In 1964, the birth rates were 6.6 children in Botswana, 5.9 children in India, and 6.7 children in Bangladesh. So we can imagine that families were really very, very big. And for every new baby, we need to give them food, we need to give them clean water, we need to give them an education, we need to give them clothing, we need to give them a house, we need to give them a decent life. And these are the challenges of the Sustainable Development Goals and run by the United Nations. So huge challenges of very, very big populations. How many children in 1964? The global birth rate, so all over the world, was about 5 children in each family. So we can imagine very, very large families all over the world. And also another issue is life expectancy. How long can you expect to live? So what was the global life expectancy in 1950? Do you think it was 46 years old, 58 years old, or 62 years old? The answer, in 1950, it was only 46 years old. So people didn't live long lives. Now, people live much longer. Of course, what is the world life expectancy now? Do you think it's 61 years old, 68 years old, or 73 years old? The answer is 73 years old. So we have people living longer and longer lives. Particularly, life expectancy in Japan in 2018 was 88 years for a woman and 82 years for a man, one of the longest in the world. Life expectancy in 1947 in Japan was about 50 years, so we see a huge increase. However, at the end of the 20th century, the beginning of the 21st century, we see a large change happening, not only in Japan, but all over the world. We can see here the number of children in Japan in 1947 was 4.5, but in 2019 it was only 1.4. So families suddenly started getting smaller and smaller. And we can see this reflected in the situation for the Japanese population. Here we can see in 1880 it was about 38 million. It reached a maximum of 128 million a few years ago, and it peaked, and it is now going down, and it will go down and down and down from here on. And of course this means we have a change in the pattern of our problems, moving from an overpopulation challenge to a challenge of the balance between younger people and older people. And here we can see in about 2020 the older people are getting more and more. The working people in the middle here are getting fewer and fewer, and the number of children in the purple at the bottom are also getting fewer and fewer. And these present completely different challenges. The challenges of taking care of older people, the challenges of finding enough people of a working age to keep a good economy going, and the challenge of decreasing numbers of children. It's a huge social problems to be faced in the future. And this situation is not only in Japan, but it's worldwide. Do you remember the birth rates that we had for Botswana and India and Bangladesh? If you look at these graphs, you can see they're going down and down and down. The birth rate now in Botswana is 2.8, in India 2.2, in Bangladesh 2, and in China 1.6. So we can see the number of children in each family is going down and down very dramatically. So when we look at this rather shocking graph of the population going up and up, perhaps we can imagine that the 7.7 billion at the top will soon turn downwards, and the balance between overpopulation and underpopulation will change the challenges that we face. Another example of this, of course, is China and India. The blue line is China, and we can see that the population in China, the largest in the world, is very soon going to peak and will very soon start going down. The population of India will pass the population of China in a very few years. It will continue to rise, and then it too will start going down and down and down. And some more recent news from the University of Washington in July 2020 suggests that the world population will peak at 9.7 billion in 2064. And this is 2 billion people fewer than expected. Why is this happening? Because of lower birth rates. More women are becoming educated and have a better quality of life, so they choose not to have so many children in a family. 23 countries, including Japan, will lose 50% of their populations by 2064. In 2100, there will be 401 million children under 5 years old, but 866 million people over 80 years old. So twice as many people over 80 than under 5. So again, we see a change of balance from this overpopulation to underpopulation, and we'll also see a change in the types of challenges we'll have to face these difficulties. But I'm sure that with good management, a good environment, and good education, we can probably overcome all of these problems. And finally, how old am I? It's still my secret. I'm still not going to tell you. Thank you for watching. See you again.